Hello, everyone. I am Neil Prime from the Shintani Wadokai Karate Federation. Today's date is August 8th, 2025, and we are conducting interviews with people who have had the opportunity to meet and work with Hansi Mazuro Shintani and to share those experiences and keep his legacy alive. Today, our very special guest is Sensei Darren Humphries from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. For the record, sir, please state your name and rank or ranks.
Darren Humphries. I'm a Shichidan in the Shintani Wadokai Karate Federation, a Shichidan in the World Traditional Karate Association, and a Shichidan in the World Kabuto Federation. I have a first degree black belt in Hapkido, and I have a first degree black belt in the Superfoot system. And that's kind of been my passion is training martial arts.
So, how many years have you been involved with the martial arts overall?
So I started in 1981, so about 44 years. I started in 1981 taking Taekwondo with my brother in a small town, Carlisle, Saskatchewan. We were fortunate enough to have a club come in and just start it up. Unfortunately, that club lasted like a year and a half and then it folded. And so then I had to wait till 1986 when I actually started Shintani Wadokai Karate Federation.
Okay, so if we can expand on that, what's your martial arts background and the studies that you have, or the styles that you've studied?
So I started off with Taekwondo, as I mentioned. And then after Taekwondo, I started karate in Carlisle, Saskatchewan. I've been studying Shindo since Sensei Shintani brought Shindo to all of us kind of in the late 80s. I did Hapkido when I first moved to Regina for my first professional job. In Regina, did Hapkido, a little bit of judo, and then when I moved to Calgary, I continued doing Hapkido and I started jujitsu as well, Japanese style jujitsu.
So, how did you get started?
Well, it's an interesting story. I got started growing up in rural Saskatchewan. I was actually, my father was big into livestock, so we were at a livestock, and I actually was out just looking at the livestock, and I got jumped by six people. So I took a licking, and I said to myself, I don't want that to happen again to me. So it just so happened that when that happened, there was an advertisement on TV, and I saw a gentleman wearing his white uniform with a black belt sitting in Seiza. And I kind of turned to my dad and I said, "That's what I want to do." And then, kind of a few years later, that's when Sensei Wraith Mokelki started the club in Redvers. Well, in Redvers is where they started. He started a club in Arcola, Saskatchewan, and Carlisle a year later. So I started there.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so it's, when you're in a small town, there's limited options, right?
Yeah.
So when the Taekwondo club came to town, we were always interested in martial arts. My brother and I, as you know, I got two brothers, older brother, younger brother. We did a lot of fighting when we were young on the farm, so it's we played hockey and ball and all that kind of stuff. But that my passion was really the martial arts. And then actually in 1982, Sensei Roland Day moved from Ontario to Redvers, Saskatchewan, and he started a 6 week or 7 week program at the Legion Hall, just doing an introductory to karate. My brother was old enough to go. I wasn't. So he actually started that very first one that Sensei Roland Day started. So yeah, I
Oh,
was pretty fortunate. And 4 years later is when he actually started. We opened up clubs in Redvers and Carlisle and stuff like that under Sensei Wraith. So
right. So, I mean, you've got a lot of years in. What would you consider your personal accomplishments related to the martial arts?
Neil, I'd have to say everything that I've personally done in my life, I've attributed to what I've learned in martial arts. My career, the way I approach my career, the dedication and stuff that it takes to train. I've always tied that back to martial arts. It's that discipline, right? That way of life. I've been very fortunate. I've had some great role models that have influenced me throughout my career. So they've definitely had a major influence. They've helped me with all my accomplishments. I think specific to martial arts, it's given me the opportunity to travel the world. I've been able to meet some very amazing people across the world. I've been to Japan. I've been all over North America training. I've been down into Mexico training and stuff. So that's kind of been the big accomplishment. And then I think the final one was when Sensei Shintani wanted to start a world competition team. And back then I was selected on the very first Shintani International competition team. We were supposed to go to Okinawa to fight. So that would be kind of one of my major accomplishments, just being selected by Sensei Shintani on that first team. It was pretty special.
Hmm. So, when was your first encounter with Hanshi Shintani?
So I started in I think January, February 1986 in the organization officially. And it would have been in November of that year. Sensei Shintani was out at the tournament that we had, the Saskatchewan provincial tournament. It was, I think it was in Moosomin, Saskatchewan. And that's basically when we first got to see him. He was in the ring judging the black belt, wearing his black pants, his white short sleeve shirt, and he was doing all of his judging, his bare feet and stuff in there. So that was just watching him judge. It was just absolutely amazing. Like I was a young teenager at that point, right? And to have somebody of that caliber come in and just his presence on the floor and here's this Japanese gentleman that started the style of karate and he's there judging in small town Moosomin, Saskatchewan, right? It was that was my first encounter with him. And then from there, we just we had Sensei Shintani out usually every spring and every fall. We kind of had in Saskatchewan, Manitoba. We had him in Manitoba in the spring, Saskatchewan in the fall, or we'd flip it back and forth. So that's where we got to spend some time with Sensei on the floor. And then we drove to Edmonton and stuff when he came out as well for the fall workshops in Edmonton. And basically, whenever he came out west, we did our best to travel out and spend time with him.
Yeah, no shortage of driving when you're living in rural areas of Canada for sure.
Yeah, it's about a 12-hour drive to get to Edmonton from where I grew up. And but we'd hop in the car on a Friday night after work or a Thursday night after work, drive all night, get there in time to get a couple hours sleep, and then we go to the seminars and stuff in the afternoon and evenings and head her back home on Sunday. So
That's amazing dedication. What was your first impression of Hanshi Shintani?
what really amazed me about Hanshi Shintani is, and sorry, I keep on saying Sensei Shintani because that's how we've always referred to him as Sensei. So Sensei's presence, I just found it always to be unbelievable. Like he come into a room and you could just see that presence about him. He was very soft spoken. He always took the time to go and talk to everyone. He didn't care if you were a high ranking black belt or a white belt or a parent. He always took the time to go in and say hi to everybody and thank them for coming out to the workshop and, just have an informal conversation with them. So, that was very impressive. And then when you see him on the floor, everything that he did, the power and the explosiveness that he had, for again, a teenager like I was, I don't know, 13, 14 at the time, having that and watching that as a role model of somebody to move like it was absolutely amazing. Your jaw dropped, right? Like I
Hmm.
remember being on the floor sometimes and when he would do his punch block, right? And he would key down. And as he keyed down, the floor would just go, right? Like it just kind of, you could just feel everything keying down. And that was that presence that he had and that power. So, he was a very impressive karate master. He was very impressive as an individual and a human. He was just so down to earth and humble. Like
Yeah, for sure. Um, what's your favorite memory of Sensei?
I guess I have several favorite memories of Senchitani. So I'll tell a couple that I
Absolutely.
really like. I guess the first one would have been, I think it was in St. Catharines, Brock University. I can't remember if it was 1988 or 1989, but it was the year that we ran out of time and had to go to the black belt competitions in the cafeteria. So I can't remember what year that was exactly. So, anyways, we were in the cafeteria and I was just over watching Sensei Wraith Mokalki, my instructor. He was competing and I think he was fighting Sensei Peter Avino. And Sensei Shitani just kind of came over and he says, is your instructor in there? And I said, yeah, Sensei Wraith Mokalki is my instructor. And Sensei says, oh, I said, that's good, that's good. And then he started talking to me. We are just talking about the match, and he was kind of analyzing the techniques. And he says, "Oh, Darren," he says, "throw Miyai Gary at me." So we kind of off to the side, and I threw a Miyai Gary, and Sensei did a Nagashi Yuki followed by a Gakasuki, right? And he barely touched me in the back of my gi. And again, that power, like Sensei's fist. When you saw Sensei's fist, it looked like a sledgehammer. Like it was just. I always thought of that, like, man, his fist was massive, right? And it just always so strong. So, that was one that was a favorite memory. The fact that he took time to come over to, I don't know, 15 or 16, whatever that was, and to spend time with me and just talk to me. Like again, I just thought that was amazing. And then to have him ask me to throw a technique against him, right? It was pretty special. So that was just fantastic. I think my second favorite memory of Sensei Shintani, I think it would have been about 1992. I think maybe 93. I can't remember exactly, but Sensei came out to run workshops in Melita, Manitoba, and we kind of all drove. So again, long drive for him to get from Melita to the workout and stuff, and then all of us drove in, and we're in the change rooms, and I started hearing conversations in the next row when Sensei was getting ready, and there happened to be a mix-up in his karate gi. So Sensei Shintani actually, Sensei Bruce Dunning's daughter, somehow got her gi mixed up with his, so it didn't fit Sensei, right? And I think it's about an hour and a half drive back to Verdun to get the gi, and Sensei Bruce is like, Sensei, I'll go back and get it. And Sensei's like, Bruce, don't worry about it. It's okay. It's okay. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get out of here. So I got changed real quick, went out to the floor. I was warming up. And then, 5 minutes later, Sensei comes out and he's wearing a gi. Well, I'd be darned if he didn't put that small gi on. It just didn't come up properly. So we did no kicks that night, but we did all upper body with lots of Nikowashi dash. So, again, the fact that there was a mix up like that, he didn't hold it against anybody, and he just came out and he taught. Like, it's just, he put on the gi, it was too small. He didn't care. He came out, he taught the techniques. Well, we'll work upper body tonight. So that's what we did. And, again, it
Perfect.
turned out to be just a fantastic workout. There was a bunch of guest instructors that came in as well from some people I had met that were in the military that drove down from Regina with me and stuff. And again, just imagine how disappointing that individual would have been that just got to know us in Saskatchewan. He was in the military in Moose Jaw, traveled out with me for 3 hours to get there, and then not have Sensei teach because he didn't have the right gi, right? So
Yeah,
it was like that to me again. It just speaks to Sensei's character. He was there to teach karate. It's something he loved, and you could just see that in everything that he did.
absolutely. So how did Hanshi Shintani make you feel?
Sensei, for me, again, keep in mind, most of my interactions with Sensei was when I was a teenager, right? And then as I started getting into my career and stuff, I would see him again a couple times a year, but it was different at that point. Sensei was getting older and stuff and things like that. So, then when Sensei passed away, it was very unfortunate. But whenever Sensei came, he always made you feel like you could accomplish anything, right? Like he had that way about him, and he just always took the time to listen to you. He gave me a sense of motivation that I always wanted to strive for more. Okay? I've always wanted to kind of get to that next level. I wanted to really drive forward, wanted to go to more competitions and stuff. And since he just had that way about him, he did the way he presented the organization, the way he talked about his black belts, and the credit he gave to all of his senior black belts. It, it just like I said, it gave me that motivational feeling, and it's something like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna go tackle this. And he never shot you down. Like I remember talking to him one time, and he said, "Hey, you're done university or done high school now. What are you gonna do?" And I'd started university, and I ended up taking a year off, and I just said to him, Sensei, I've applied to the RCMP, and I'm looking at maybe doing that. I've been thinking about maybe going to Japan. And as soon as I said, hey, I'm interested in going to Japan, maybe Sensei's like, oh, that'd be really good, right? So it's just, he never judged anybody, right? And so when you had that kind of personality there encouraging you, it was just positive. It was a very positive experience.
Absolutely. So what struck you the most about Hanshi Shintani?
I think what struck me the most was definitely how humble and how kind he was to everybody, no matter who you were. He didn't care if you were one of his high-ranking instructors. He didn't care if you were a white belt, like I said, a parent. He didn't care if it was a grandparent. He was just kind, soft-spoken and kind. And, deep down, you knew that if Sensei ever had to do something, he had the skills, right? But you'd
Yeah.
never see that. He was just so nice. He treated everybody the same. He gave you the benefit of the doubt, even if you were in the wrong. Sensei would give you the benefit of the doubt and give you the opportunity for you to correct yourself, right? And he would kind of just talk in generals, and he would make a few things, and he would kind of get you to take that and make the right decision for yourself.
Hmm.
So that to me was really what I look at that, and I just think that it's just he was a very good human being.
What inspired you most about Hanshi Shintani's character?
I think, kind of to the last question, it was definitely his kindness, and it was how he treated everybody the same. Again, that just for me in all my interactions, just how kind he was, how soft spoken he was. Like it's just, and again, you knew that he had this ability to fight. Like he was an amazing fighter, but you'd never know it when you're just talking to him, right? He was just kind of because when you're young and you see higher ranking black belts, you're intimidated. Right? But
Yeah,
Sensei never made you feel that way. Like he made you feel comfortable. He was very open and he welcomed you to come talk to him.
yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely. Um, was there a moment that made you say wow, or an aha moment, maybe something that clicked that he had taught you and it finally, worked? Anything like that?
I think that would be one of the clinics that he did when he came to Saskatchewan, Manitoba to spend some time with us. We were working on sidestepping and we were doing kind of a Uriuki followed by a Gakasuki. Right. So he would go in actually sort of Sotuuki, Uriuki, and then Gakasuki. And when he sidestepped and when he keyed down for the counterattack with the reverse punch, the Gakasuki, that one I just sat back and I went, wow, right? Like that was one where you sit back and you look at that power and the speed that he executed techniques. Another one would be that Nagashi Uki, the way he did Nagashi Uki followed by the reverse punch, whether he punched you to the head or to the body. If you look at shintanikarate.com on the homepage, that's what we have is Sensei Peter Trophy throwing him Miyagi Gary, and he does Nagashi Uki followed by the punch, and you just watch how fast that was and how much power was there. That to me was a wow, what an aha moment. It's just that
Yeah.
that speed, like his fist, he was so fast.
So, is there a favorite technique that Hanshi Shintani showed you, or perhaps something that you taught or still teach today?
It would be the Nagashiyuki followed by the reverse punch. And then what we've done is we've added in the Nagashiyuki. We followed up a little bit of a foot sweep at the same time to kind of stretch the opponent a bit more. But that basic thing that we've got and kind of those one of the key Shintani keyhones,
Hmm.
and honestly, in general, I look at all the Shintani keyhones that he's got. Like I love the ones where we work kind of you stay on the line, you push your opponent off the line, right? So we work both. We work on the line, we work off the line. All those techniques to me are my favorite techniques. And I'm so glad we've got those documented now. And it's part of our heritage and our legacy now as we kind of bring those into our black belt gradings and have a very standard set. Like people asking, hey, what are we going to do in the black belt grading for Kihon techniques? Well, look at the videos because that's what we're going to be doing, right? So all of those, bringing them together and keeping that legacy, that's definitely my favorite techniques.
Right. And if people didn't catch that, it is part of the video library that people can go to shintani.ca and go to the store and check out a good bit of Shintani history there. What's the one thing about Hanshi Shintani that you think that he should be remembered for?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, remembered for what he's given to Canada and martial arts in Canada. Like he was one of the founders of karate in Canada. Growing up in the wartime camps and what he had to endure when he was young and how he moved to Ontario and started that karate and then it filtered across the country. I think that definitely want to make sure people remember that. And then,
Mhm.
on the other side of it, I think his humbleness, his sincerity, and how he treated people. Like I really wished everybody could just see how nice he was to everybody. Like that, I don't, for me personally, I don't ever want to see people lose that fact of how nice he was to people. And, it's just that it will stick with me for my lifetime. Again, there was such an influence on me when we didn't get to spend lots of time with him, but when we did spend time with him at those seminars and stuff and just seeing how humble and sincere he was, that definitely affected me and that will stay with me for the rest of my life.
Right. What would you say to the students that have never had the opportunity to meet Hanshi Shintani? Somebody starting today, a new black belt today.
You know, I think I would say take the opportunity to work out with the direct students of Sensei Shintani or Hanshi Shintani. Like, Sensei's been gone since 2000. As an organization, we've done a very good job, in my opinion, of keeping the organization together. I think everybody should take the opportunity to go to these clinics when we're having our high-ranking instructors out that were direct students of Sensei Shintani, learn from that lineage. And, it's not going to be the same, but it's the next best thing having a direct student. And I think, taking the opportunity with some of the work we're doing on the legacy committee and trying to get some of these videos of Sensei Shintani and all the stuff, take the time go to the website, look at it, and see some of the stuff there, and just get a sense of who our founder was. And I'm pretty confident everybody's going to be as impressed as I was when I was a young teenager and watching him move. It was just absolutely amazing. It's, it's different for you. You were a direct student as a teenager, working out with them every week. Being so far in rural Saskatchewan, we took the opportunity we could, and that's how we learned. So we learned from Sensei Roland Day, and when Sensei came out, we applied that to that. Everybody's got their own unique flavor, but you can see that influence in all of his students and all of his black belts.
Yeah, and I was fortunate enough to work out with Sensei Roland Day also before he moved out west because he was one of the many black belts who would come down to St. Catharines because it was central to the Niagara region. And man, it was I was so lucky to work out in that club. I mean, not just Sensei Shintani, but some of his greatest and most dedicated disciples would come out on a weekly basis. So this next question is probably the hardest. Can you describe Hanshi Shintani in one sentence?
I would say he's an amazing karateka. He's the most honest and most sincere individual you would ever meet.
That's amazing. You summed it up very, very well. I couldn't do it that quickly. Is there anything else that you would like to say about Hanshi Shintani?
One of the things that, again, that we're trying to preserve in the organization is Sensei or Henshi Shintani's legacy. I would say for those people that have never met him, his karate was real. We may not have karate that is exactly, hey, you got to have your stance at this exact angle, your ankle's got to be in this exact position. But I tell you what, our karate is real. What Sensei taught us and what we're trying to preserve is keeping that realism to the karate. It was very powerful. Everything we do, we want to work on that realism. We want to work on that power. And at the end of the day, again, in my opinion, does it matter if you're a little bit off on a stance? No. I mean, as long as you've got things there, and the way Sensei would teach one person one way to bring that out of them, and then he teach somebody else another way. And at the end of the day, it would come to the same, but he taught it differently based on the individual. So, I think that's to me what I really want to make sure that we continue to do. We want to keep that realism, that power, keep his memory alive. And by things that you're doing like this, Neil, I think this is just absolutely amazing. With you and Sensei Perkins started this, and just having these conversations and just getting different stories from everybody. That is that's another side that people are going to hear about Hashi Shintani that us out west we may not have experienced that. Like the stories that he told us out west, they may have been completely different from some of the stories that he told out east, right? So
Mm-hmm.
by having these conversations and getting these old videos of Sensei teaching and stuff, that to me is, keeping that alive is going to be just a key focus for us, and I hope we can continue to move it forward.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of similarities in the conversations that we have with everybody, but there's always that unique point of view that each person who's interviewed can provide. And that's why we're doing this. And that's really, really important. Do you have any closing comments or thoughts?
Yeah, I think Hanshi Shintani, he created an amazing organization. We all belong to it. So everybody that's in the SWKKF, it's our organization. We belong to it. I know for me and all the Senate members, yourself included, we're all geared to doing everything we can to ensure the success and the growth of the Shintani Wadokai Karate Federation because we truly do have something special. The family oriented in how we are, we're very successful in smaller towns. Like again, if karate wouldn't have come to Carlisle, I sit back and I go, what would my life be like if I didn't have this opportunity? So, I think that's a special thing we have in the organization. So I'll do whatever I can to make sure we continue to have success in the organization. Um, again, I can't imagine how my life would have turned out if Sensei Roland did not move to a small town in southeast corner of Saskatchewan. Right? It's just we were so fortunate, and then from there we've grown, and we're pretty much in all the provinces and stuff again. And I just think that is special to have that ability for us to go across the country whenever we travel. Like I was in Saskatoon last week for with my daughter for a competition in softball, and we had a workout with the Saskatoon group. like that's what it's like. Like there's so many people we can go. When I come out to Ontario, I get to go to your club and work out with you and go to Welland, right? It's having all these dojos across the country and everybody is just welcoming, and I think that is what Sensei built in his organization. Our organization could have been different. It could have had a different attitude, but having that right from Sensei with that humbleness and that kindness that he had, that is what I see across our organization. And, I got people in my club that ask, hey, I'm going to Ontario. I call up and just where they're going, and hey, they're welcome to come out and train. They give the contact information, and people they go out of the way, they get their cars, they come, they drive them around and stuff, right? Like again, that to me is it's a pretty special part of our organization, and I really want to make sure we preserve that. And again, that came from Hanshi Shintani and what he started.
It's very apparent for the people who don't know. Listening to Sensei Darren, you can hear his passion of how important it is to continue the legacy of Sensei Shintani. And Sensei Darren Humphries is one of our Senate members, which is our governing body, and he does an awful lot for the organization, particularly in the technology side of things, but just his ability to get things done. You're a go-getter. You do so much, not just for the SWKKF, but you balance it with your life, your work life, your family. You're just amazing, and I'm really glad that we had this opportunity to talk. And thank you very much for sharing your stories about Sensei Shintani.
Thank you very much, Sensei Neil. Appreciate it.